Howdy. Howdy, sir. I was just wanting to get a response. It is a great privilege for me to be here. One time I was as young as you. And probably at one time pretty close where you were before you came here. You can relax. Can you relax? Out of the way. Gee, I thought maybe you were mortified or something. Let me say right off that in my citation it says these words: he went forward alone. Had I written that citation myself, I would not put those words in there, because I did not go forward alone. I was out there by myself, but I had Marines assisting me. This medal that I wear around my neck, I have said from day one, well, day two. The day I got it, I was so scared I couldn't even think. But day two, my brain began to work again. And I have said from that day on that the medal really does not belong to me. It belongs to those Marines with me who never got it, who supported me in what I was doing. There are very few things in this world that we can do alone. Two of those Marines, that faithful day in my life of February the 23rd, 1945, two of those Marines gave their lives that day, protecting my life. And for that reason, I say the medal does not belong to me. It belongs to them. They gave their life, so I could receive it. So when I wear the medal, I don't wear it for what I did. I was just doing the job for which I had been trained. I wear it in their honor. For which I had been trained. We can't go through life without somebody teaching us something. And we can be taught something good, or we can be taught something bad. There's a place about 5 miles from my house. It has 400 beds in it, but they have 625 people occupying those 400 beds. Now, they don't sleep together. They put mattresses down during the day, during the evening, the night, and then they take them up during the day. But those 625, somewhere along the line, failed to have their life influenced by something good that made them a better person. I was in Dallas, Texas, a week or so ago, speaking to 300 junior high school. And I had never told this story before, but during the night before I was to talk to this 300 group of students, I thought, what can I say to them that might have an impact on their life going forward? And I finally decided, my grandson was with me, and he had never heard this story because I had never told it before. But something motivated me to say, I've got to tell those young folks that we can be influenced in the wrong direction. We have to make that decision. Nobody else can make it for us. We have got to do that ourselves. I was about 16 years old. How many of you are 16? Okay. See, I was there one time. I was about 16 years old. And I took up with a fellow who lived several miles from me. We lived in the country. He lived several miles from me. He was one of those individuals who could almost convince you that day was night. He had a winsome way about him. I had 3 brothers. Did I pay much attention to them? No. But that guy got to me. He was 18 years old. He was 2 years older than me. He had experiences that I'd never had. Luther began to convince me that somebody owed us. We didn't have any money. This is during the days of the Depression when if you had a dime, you were lucky. So we didn't have anything. Didn't have any money. On Saturday, they would give us a dime. So we'd go to town. Believe it or not, we could buy a hot dog for 5 cents. We'd get an ice cream cone for 5 cents. Or we'd go to a movie for 5 cents. But we had to make a choice. We couldn't do all 3. We could go 2. We'd go to the movie and have an ice cream cone or a hot dog. Luther began to convince me that, others have more than we do. They got stuff we don't have. We had a little country store just a few miles from us, run by what to me was an old man. Gray-headed. Didn't walk very fast. He ran that store all by himself. He would open at 8 in the morning and close about 9 at night. Dark when he closed and locked the door. Took his little money bag of the money that he had taken into the store that day. Walk out of the store, turn, lock the door, walk across the road to his house. It was about 90 yards away. Luther convinced me that guy had everything in the world. He had nothing. So why don't we just take it? His scheme was, it's dark. He can't see who we are. He won't know who we are. If we catch him going to his house with his money bag under his arm, we can run, knock him down, grab the money bag, get away. Who's that? He almost had me convinced. But somewhere in the background, my folks had said, hey, you don't take things that don't belong to you. You didn't earn them. They're not yours. You have no right to those kinds of things. Finally, that registered in my mind, and I told Luther, not anybody. I'm not going to help you with that. So Luther decided to do it on his own. You know where he ended up? Prison. Life ruin. You and I are influenced by people, others, almost every day. My name is really Herschel Woodrow Williams. Now, my first name, Herschel, is after the doctor that came to see if I was alive 3 days after I was born. Woodrow comes from the name of, guess who? That's right, President Woodrow Wilson. So based on those two names, I should have been a doctor or a president of the United States, just because that's my name. I don't have to earn that. I do have to earn it. Whatever comes my way, I have got to do with the help of others. I've got to be the leader of myself. I've got to make my own decisions with the help of others. I had no dream of ever going into the Marine Corps. I was, as I said, I was born and raised in the country. We had no military influence. Very seldom ever saw a person in uniform. So I had no influence in that direction. But we had no newspaper. We had no radio. Oh, did we have television? Why, of course. No. Never heard of the word. So, I'm going to test you. I'm going to give you a test. You guys talk in a different language than we do. See, in my day, I never heard of cyberspace, or gigabytes, or Twitter, or Facebook. Those are all new words. And to you, they're just everyday language. But to me, they're new words. So I always like to test the word that I'm speaking with to see if I might be able to get up on their level. You have more knowledge at your age than we ever gained in my age of time. Not specific things, but general knowledge. So I like to test it through. It's a very simple test. I just give you a number and you give me the next highest number. If I say 70, you say 71. Well, I know you know your number, so that's not the test. The test is, do you do it with enthusiasm? And do you do it quickly? Does your mind work? Go. Fast. Immediate. So, I'm going to give you a number. I want you to give me the very next number. Okay, everybody got it? Understand what we're doing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. 1095. 1097. 1099. Well, I don't know that I'm up on your level, but I got you. But I never dreamed of going into the Marine Corps. But the word in our community was, there is somebody. I had never heard of Yellow. I'd never heard of the Japanese. I had never heard of them. If I did, during that day in school, it didn't say. I didn't even know we had a South Pacific Ocean. I knew we had an Atlantic Ocean. Because they had a great big ship one day that sunk in the Atlantic, and there was a lot of talk about that. But Pacific Ocean, I know it had that. But what we heard was somebody was trying to take our freedom. My teacher that I had in grade school taught me the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of ocean. Taught me that I live in the greatest country in the world. Taught me that my kingdom was one of the most prized possessions I had in the world. So when I heard somebody was trying to take my field, I'm going to take mine. going to join the Marine Corps to protect America, my country. Now, why did I select the Marine Corps? Here comes the influence. See, we had two fellows in our community who did not like to do farm work or work in a coal mine. That's about all we had. They didn't like to scatter horse residue. I cleaned that up for you. Horse what? Horse residue. They didn't like those kinds of work. So they joined the Marine Corps. When they would come home, one time a year, they would be in their dress rooms. Always tall, straight, polite. I mean, they even opened car doors for women. Golly! Wimps is what they were. But they would come home one time a year. They gave me an image, an influence that said somewhere way back here, I'm not going into the Marine Corps, I'm not going to do anything military, but if I ever do, that's what I want to be like. I want to look like them, I want to act like them, I want to be them. So when I got ready to protect my country, I went to the Marine Corps and said, here I am. I'm ready to fight to protect my country. My mother, who was a widow, my father died when I was 9. My mother was a widow trying to raise 5 kids, 1 girl and 4 boys. My mother would not sign my paper at 17 years old so I could go into the Marine Corps. At 18, I became a man. Gee whiz, I grew a foot just overnight, I thought. But at 18, I became a man. Now I can do whatever I want to do. My mother could not tell me what to do. You all been there? Yeah, you all been there. Every one of you been there. My mother cannot tell me what to do. My dad cannot tell me what to do. How you been there? At 18, I said, I'm going to the Marine Corps to protect my country. My mom, she wasn't very happy with me. So I went to the Marine recruiter and I filled out my paper. Handed the paper to him. He didn't even look at the paper. He just looked at me and shook his head, said, I can't take you. The natural question was what? Why? Why? You step up with me, lady. That's all. See? 5'4". I used to be 5'6", and I've shrunk 2 inches. But that happens. You think we're short? Yeah, we're short. Thank you very much. That was the answer he gave me. We cannot take you because you are too short. Okay? I can't go in the Marine Corps. Remember that influence of those guys that would come home one time a year. If I can't go in the Marine Corps, I am not going to go. So I went back to the farm. We ran a dairy. I went back to the farm. Let everybody else protect the country. If I can't go in the Marine Corps, I'm not going to go because of the influence of those 2 individuals. That recruiter, pretty smart. I think he knew eventually they're going to have to take a height requirement off that the Marine Corps had at that time. You had to be 5'8" or better, or you could not get in the Marine Corps. And I think he knew they were going to take that height off after I was turned down they took the height requirement off, and they began accepting people 5'2" and over. Since I was 5'6", he looked me up. Said, "You want to go to the Marine Corps?" And I said, "Yeah. I still want to protect my country." So off I go. My concept of protecting America when I was 18 years old, before I was taught differently, was that all of us in the military, all branches, would be right here in America and just dare anybody to try and come and take America away from us and take our freedom. That's how little I knew about the world. What a shock it was when I got to California and I finished my 13 weeks of boot camp. And they said, "You're going to the Pacific. You're going to fight the Japanese on islands in the Pacific." When I got to the Pacific, and we began taking islands one after another, on the way to Japan, we had to naturally defeat Japan or the Japanese in order to win the war. But I got into combat. This is where the training that I've received came into play. If somebody back here had not taught me, and I had not paid attention to what they were teaching me, so that I could apply that at the time that I needed it, I wouldn't be here speaking to you today. So let me emphasize, there are going to be times when it's going to be as dull as mud. And you're going to say, "Why aren't they teaching me this? I'm not going to use this." Well, you don't know. I didn't know. Never having been in combat, I didn't know what reality really was, or how I felt to have people shoot at you and try to kill you. You can't imagine those kinds of things. So that's where the training came in. That's where the training took over. And I reacted to the training and not to my natural fears and inclinations. So I say to you, absorb all you can. Be trained on. But one of these days, and shortly, December, in fact, you're going to walk out of this place. You again are going to be that person who makes those decisions that affects your life forever. Don't let somebody say, "Oh, marijuana is going to hurt you. Oh, this little bit of heroin is going to hurt you. Or we could do this, we'll never get caught." Stay away from those. Be your own person. God created you like no other person on earth. There is no other person like you. Somebody said we may have somebody that looks like us. I feel sorry for the guy that looks like me. But even though he may look like me, he is not like me. I am still that individual, created personally for me by my Creator. He didn't make anybody else like me, and He didn't make anybody else like you. You are one of the most prized possessions that guy here. He was a veteran. Life has been, for me, a joyful ride. I was in high school, trying to go to high school. I dropped out. I don't do this. I did several things between high school and the day I went to see that recruiter. I found that was a big disadvantage for me when I was in the Marine Corps. When I got out, I needed to be married. My wife started having kids. I didn't have any feel for that. Did I? Why must I? I didn't go back to school. Got my GED. Right on. Started having a family. Working 2 jobs. Trying to make a living, buy a home, buy a car, all of that. I regret to this day that I didn't do what many of you plan to do. Increase your education. Get yourself a recipient, right? Make your life what you really want. Thank you very much. Open for questions.
Did you want to be like the flamethrower person, or was it just kind of the option of the kid?
I don't know whether you know what a flamethrower really is. Everybody know what a flamethrower is? How it works? That was my job. That is what I had been trained to do. But I had been put in charge of 6 other flamethrower Marines, and we had been cross-trained that we could do things with explosives or the flamethrower. We could fill either billet. If we couldn't burn it up, we could blow it up. So I had lost all those 6 individuals, either wounded or killed. So I'm now the only flamethrower operator in my company. And when my commanding officer asked me if I thought I could do something about what we called pillboxes in those days, that you all call bunkers today, it's a concrete-built blockhouse, reinforced concrete with steel in it. You could drop a bomb on it, you could shoot it with a bazooka, you could hit it with artillery, and it was so thick it didn't do any good. The only way you could get rid of the enemy was to get something inside the pillbox. That's where the flamethrower came in. Every pillbox had an opening in the front of it. Naturally, they had to have some way from inside to shoot on the outside. So they had an aperture across the front of the pillbox. It was only about that wide, but that rifles could stick through there, and machine guns could stick through there, and they could fire a whole field out here. So the point was to get the flame through that aperture into that pillbox. It burned at 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. When it hit, it collapsed the lungs and the people died. That's why it was so effective. But you had to get within 25, 30 yards of that pillbox in order to get the flame into the pillbox. The demolition guy, his job was, after you burned it out, then he would throw explosive in there so that if there were any survivors, there would be. What I was thinking about that day, I had 4 hours out there, that much of which I do not remember. And I attribute that to fear. To say I wasn't scared would be lying. When somebody's shooting at you, if you're not scared, you're stupid. So, what I was thinking about was what I had to do. And that's where my training came from. It's just like putting a car on cruise. I knew what to do. I knew how to do it. If I'd stop and think, hey, you go up there to that pillbox, that son of a gun might shoot you, I wouldn't have gone. But my training took it. And I did the job for which I've been trained. It's like a pilot. He doesn't stop to think of what he's going to do in the airplane. He just does it. Because his training takes over. Doesn't make any difference what you're doing, what kind of an occupation you're in. If you know it well enough, you don't have to actually think of every action you're taking. Computer. You have to stop and think, well, I'm going to hit an E. No, don't think I will. Think I'll hit an F. No, you just hit it. There it is. You already know it. If that helps any, I don't know. But I've said many times, not always, but many times, I've said those Marines back behind me who were giving me support, shooting at the pillboxes as I was trying to get to them, I said, those guys didn't even like me. You know why I say that? I used up 6 flamethrowers that day. When it's empty, it's useless, so I just unbuckle it and fly out of it and go get another one. And I said, they didn't like me because not one of those guys back there said, hey, just wait out there, I'll bring you another one. They made me go back and get it myself. That's why I say I don't think they like it.
Okay, all right.
I was trained as a rifleman. Every Marine is trained as a rifleman. Then he's trained as something else. A cook, a baker, horseshoe maker, or whatever. But he's trained after he gets his basic rifle. He is a rifleman. Which means that if you need him, you can jerk him out of the kitchen and put him in a rifle position. Because he's always trained to be a rifleman, number one. Then you get something else. When I got overseas, they signed me a Browning automatic rifle, which shoots more bullets, a little faster than the regular M1 rifle. And we had one automatic rifleman in each section. So they gave me that. It weighs more than the other weapon. You have to carry more ammunition for it because you're going to waste more of it. So they put me in that. Then the flamethrower came along, and we'd never had them before. They were brand new. Nobody had ever used one. So it came along, and they said, well, we need some people to train to be flamethrower demolition operators. And they said, you, and you. And I was one of those that they said, you. I became an operator. When we got to Guam, I was a flamethrower demolition operator there. A young man by the name of Clevenger, who was picked to take my place as a Browning automatic rifleman. And on Guam, the Japanese kept charging us what they called banzai. They'd get half drunk on sake, and then they would just come like a herd of cattle at you. They did that. They come in such great numbers that we couldn't get them all. So during the night, Clevenger and one other Marine was put out front in a hole. They had to dig their own hole, foxhole. They were put out front. Their job was to warn us, who were on the line back here, if the Japanese were trying to sneak in on us. When they banzaied, they overran his position. He was killed. Had I not been selected to be a flamethrower operator, I would have been Clevenger's position. And it would have been me that's the Japanese one. We have no explanation for those things. I don't know why that happened that way. But I've never forgotten the fact that I'm alive and Ray Clevenger